Alright, so in this problem we have speed versus miles per gallon. Okay, so when you graph those you get this right here. So obviously we got to try to go up the ladder of powers. Let's see what happens if we square L2. Okay, and we get let's see, plot, we're going to do L1 versus L3 and then zoom 9. And that didn't really change anything, right? So the only other thing I could try to do is log. So let's see what happens here. We'll do log of L1 and then log of L2, and we'll plot L3 versus L4, and that didn't really change anything either. Okay. So in this case I may not be able to straighten this, okay, but I could still find a model that fits this. And so I have that right there, right? Now that looks like a quadratic to me. So let's see what happens if I calc a quadratic model. So that's what the model looks like, right? And then I'm going to say, okay, let's go to y equals, and let's clear, and let's go to vars, statistics, equation, regression equation, and then graph that. Alright, so that looks pretty like a pretty good model to me. Okay, so this is a quadratic model. Alright, so why didn't that work? Why can't we just do the square root of it, right? That's what some of you may be asking. I mean, if we just go into this and we say, okay, let's do the square root of L2, and then we say, okay, we're going to do L1 versus L3. You know, why doesn't this work for us? Okay, it didn't straighten it at all, right? We did L1 versus L3 and it still came out curved. It didn't straighten it. Okay. What happens with our models is if we have a model that looks like this, then the techniques that we have in our chapter will straighten that out, and we can make that come out like a straight line. Okay. But if you have a model that looks like this, okay, so you got a U-shaped kind of deal, you can make a model that'll straighten this out, and you can make a model that'll straighten that out, but you will never make a model that will straighten that whole deal out. So the problem here is we have a U-shaped situation. So when we have a U-shaped situation, we got to use the regressions that are built into the calculator. So in this case we had to go to quad regression, and we had to have it calculate that. So the answer to the question is, well, what is the model? Okay. Well, it says to create a linear model. Well, there is no linear model that'll work, but there is a quadratic model that'll work. Okay, and that quadratic model is stat calc, and then you do quad regression, and that's the model that works. So it's really not a linear model. Now you look at the r squared value. Okay, there's no r value because there's no correlation because it's not linear. But you look at the r squared value, and 96% of the variation in miles per gallon is being explained by speed. So it is a pretty powerful model. Okay, it's just not linear. So in this case we cannot re-express this as a linear model.